You guys have been asking me to react to Reddit for a long time, so let's get started. Spill that tea! Am I the asshole for telling my daughter-in-law and son that it is too late and I will not change the family vacation plans so they can come? Just from the headline alone, I have a feeling that OP is not an asshole, but let's get the full story here. Every year, I try to do a family vacation. Around Easter, I asked everyone for their availability. The best days for almost everyone was a winter vacation. My daughter-in-law and son told me that day wouldn't work for her, so they can't go. I asked if the backup days would work, and it was a no. Okay, pretty straightforward. It seems like OP tried to make accommodations. Usually, the vacation is something that everyone can drive to. It was going to be the same until all the adults agreed the kids were old enough to leave the country. So now the trip is to Europe. Everyone has bought their tickets and I have booked where we are staying. Everything is getting finalized. My son and daughter-in-law were not in the family vacation chat since they weren't going on the vacation. They heard about the plans and want to be added in. She called me up asking about it and what they need to do. I asked her how she could get off work and she explained she just could. I personally think she didn't want to go on the trip until she learned it was to Europe and lied to me that she couldn't come in the first place. Oh, you think it's a situation where she wants to go to Europe and because it's a group thing, maybe they're splitting costs so she can go to Europe at a cheaper price versus going by herself, so now she's interested? But maybe she's not invested in the family itself? I told her it is too late. Things are booked and I am not willing to pay more than I already have. I paid for all the lodging. We would need to upgrade to fit 2 more adults. Oh yeah, it sounds like it would be a good money-saving venture here if she did find a way to get in. She asked if I was serious and that it is cruel to not include them on a family trip around Christmas. I told her it is what it is and it's not my fault. My son is pissed. He told me that I can afford to add 2 more adults. That is true. I reiterated what I told his wife. He called me a jerk. I want an outside opinion. Something suspicious is definitely going on here. Because notice that it's a winter vacation and OP's daughter-in-law and son said that the days they chose in the wintertime would not work for them, even the backup days. And then for her daughter-in-law to say that she could get off work and she just could. That definitely sounds suspicious to me. So OP's suspicion about the daughter-in-law and possibly son-in-law, because it sounds like the son-in-law is just kind of backing her up. They just want a vacation to Europe. I mean, that tracks by itself. But what I'll also say is I see some underlying personality issues here from the daughter-in-law because she's very entitled from what I'm reading here. I mean, to say that it's cruel to not include them, and then the son-in-law saying that OP can afford to bring them on, so they just should bring them. It screams entitlement to me. Also, there's immaturity here. I mean, could you imagine someone booking a whole vacation for the whole family? That's a lot of money. And then to just be like, you can afford to bring us, so why don't you just spend even more money? That doesn't sound like the kind of thing that someone would tell you if they really cared about you. That sounds like someone who just wants to take advantage of you. I'm sort of curious about the background here. It almost seems like maybe the relationship between them wasn't very good to begin with, and this whole vacation thing just kind of brought it to a head. Let's see what people in the comments are saying. Do you like my mug? If you go to merchofthewind.com right now and use coupon code 10ofthewind, you can get 10% off of this mug and everything else in my merch store right now. Not the asshole. First of all, you planned everything already, and if your daughter-in-law really changed everything just because the trip was to somewhere she wanted to go, doesn't sound good. Second, why can't they pay the extra if they want to come? Aren't they adults already? See, that's what I was touching upon with the maturity thing. I don't understand why they expect OP to pay their way. It's just so weird. It's like they've either they've never planned a vacation like that themselves, so they're intimidated or something and they want someone else to do it, or maybe their financial situation isn't good enough that they can do it, so they're trying to get someone else to pay for them. But even so, if you really care about someone in your family, I don't think you'd financially take advantage just by feeling entitled to a vacation to Europe, which is really nice. But even before the trip became about Europe, OP seemed to be doing a lot of the planning. It seems to be something they're treating their family to. And so the fact that they didn't appreciate the offer when it wasn't Europe, but all of a sudden when it's Europe, like now they appreciate it, but also don't care about OP because they still have that entitlement. It's just really weird to me. Oh, okay, OP is actually confirming this. I know they will not be able to afford it if they have to buy their own lodging and everything. I could give them that option, but I think it will throw gas on the flame. I agree. I think that it's best to just not keep the discussion going. I think the way the OP handled it, just by saying, hey, it's not my fault and it is what it is, I think that's a good way to close off the conversation. Sounds like they think they're entitled to it, but only if it suits them. They're the worst. Not necessarily. It's entirely possible that daughter-in-law's boss would be more amenable to giving her the time off of a chance at a European trip than a trip to a cabin in the woods. Back when I was in grad school, I had the opportunity for an almost free trip to Italy. I asked my boss about getting 10 days off and he said absolutely not, we were already short-handed. 2 days later, he found out the trip was to Italy and called me into the office and said, go, I'll figure it out. Wow! Honestly, to me, that sounds more like you had an incredible boss than anything else. I don't think any boss that I have ever had would let me, first of all, go on vacation at all. Secondly, make a special exception because it was to a nice place. But, I mean, interesting, like, that's an option. I mean, I still think that's more likely to be you have a really good boss than anything, especially if OP is from the US, which it sounds like they are. My coworker won a trip to a festival out west the week I'm supposed to give birth. There's no way my boss would have allowed vacation time for anything except emergencies. But this is a good, reliable worker who is already rearranging her schedule to cover me while I'm gone. So the whole team and my boss were 100% fine with her going. We didn't want her to miss out on a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Anything else would have been highly unlikely. That sounds like an amazing boss and amazing coworkers. Oh my god, I'm so jealous. I wish that when I was working the 9 to 5 and I really needed something, my whole team rallied around me and supported me. I was always the one coming in and taking extra shifts for my coworkers. No one ever did that for me back. That is not the norm in today's workplace with employers, and a European vacation is not a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity anymore because they are literally cheaper than a Caribbean all-inclusive today. I mean, I think the first sentence is pretty accurate. The second sentence, I don't think can be accurate because it depends on what you define as a European vacation. If we're just talking about airplane tickets to Europe, yes, they're pretty affordable. But once you get into the actual logistics of the trip, it's a completely different story. Tell me you're not familiar with being poor without telling me you're not familiar with being poor. Isn't it harsh, guys? Isn't it harsh? We're the ones that deserve the European vacation. It took so much work to build all these brain cells. I deserve some rest. Or even working class or middle class, it cost my partner and me around $6,000 for 2 weeks in Scotland, and that was doing everything on a shoestring. Most people can't afford to just toss around thousands on a whim. Europe can actually be incredibly expensive depending on where you're going, especially if you're going to some of the richest countries in the history of the world, the ones with the higher than average happiness index for their citizens. It is crazy, the real estate prices that they charge. Oh my god. I don't know how they survive. I can only imagine that they must have, like, I don't know, international businesses or something. Or I guess they just are people who saved up money over their lifetime and then retired. The first boss that I ever had was a billionaire from Europe. I'm trying to remember, I think he was from Denmark? But his business was actually, it was in Europe, but it was also in the USA and Canada. Yeah, that's an international business, yeah. So that's my guess. Heck, I just want to go to Disney World for my 40th birthday, and I'm not sure I can afford it. And it's just a day's drive for me. A vacation to Europe? Never gonna happen. Personally, I don't understand how people even survive today. Like, how does the average person afford rent, food, a car, which also means gas, maintenance, and insurance, and then healthcare, and then God forbid, you know, a tree falls on the roof of your house, or you get robbed, you know, your apartment gets broken into. Clothes, basics. I haven't even talked about actually saving money for, you know, your retirement, or the approximately $30,000 in debt that Americans have on average. Oh, definitely. I think most employers wouldn't care enough about their employees like that to be willing to make the sacrifice. But being able to afford something like that definitely depends on the person. Nobody I work with has the funds to go on either a Caribbean vacation or a trip across the world to Europe. Half are single moms working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. That's certainly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for all but maybe one of us. I've never actually made enough money to go on vacation myself. I've always had to be like part of a volunteer group that sponsored me going to some event, or like my employer's like, hey guys, we gotta upskill, so can you go to this training somewhere? And like, it's kind of travel because you get to go somewhere, but it's also not, because you're just there to do a job, you're just there to learn something. You don't necessarily get the time to really enjoy the area, but there's no use focusing on what you can't control, right? It's all about focusing on what you can control, because the moment you start worrying about things that aren't yours, worrying about things that are out of your control, of course you're gonna feel like you're boxed in, and you're not going to feel great. No human being is going to feel great not having autonomy, or feeling like they don't have autonomy, which is really what it is. I know that if I hustle really hard, I could afford a vacation, like a vacation to Europe, for example. But I also know that a vacation doesn't have to be this expensive thing, you know? I can go to a local beach. I can go on a local hike. I can book a cabin that's just a few minutes away from my house. Even if it's just an Airbnb and it's like $100 or $150 for one night. If you want to go to Europe someday for vacation, or any other country, or you want a more luxurious experience, that is totally valid. At the same time, I think it's important to remember that it's our expectations around things and our definitions of words that very much kind of define how we see life in the world. And if every time we think of something like a vacation, it's only the grand ideas, it's always going to be more out of our reach and take more time, energy, and money to get to that. And it can get exhausting. And if just affording that kind of opportunity is enough to cause you stress, then how peaceful could the actual opportunity be if you actually had it? You know what I mean? I really enjoy simple things because I can have rest and I can learn things. I can have all the experiences I want, but I don't have to slog for 6 to 12 months and save up just a few $1,000. And then, you know, blow it all on 1 to 2 weeks of my life, and then that's it, you know? What was I really working for, you know? I like for my money to work for me, and that's not an investment, you know? I can get those same results doing something simpler and invest that money in things that make me more money. And then when I have more than enough money, then I know what to do with, then we can go on that fancy trip to Europe. But that's just my personal opinion. Your boss figuring out a staffing problem all by himself? How novel. It blows my mind that you would need to justify why you need time off. Time off is your own time and nobody's business but your own. I don't care why my team wants time off, it's their right, and as long as they don't go over their yearly available days, I'm all good. This person sounds like they are a very good boss, if they are one. It sounds like they're speaking from the perspective of someone who is. That's really cool. I think we need more, I don't know if chill boss is the right term, but I think we need more caring bosses. You know, bosses that care about their actual people and the dynamics, not just the numbers. And I wish that they had to go through some kind of like psychological training, because a lot of the bosses and managers I had underlying issues that they brought to work, you know. Sometimes it was depression, sometimes it was anger issues, and when you're trying to lead people, that's not the best combination of traits. Not the asshole, not the asshole, not the asshole. All right. What do you guys think? Have you ever had weird situations like this with your family? I'll be honest, this is why I don't associate with mine very much. I still love them, but from a distance, I much prefer found family and being able to curate the kind of family that I'm looking for. Because sometimes the personalities and the skill sets and the maturity you really need to be happy in your relationships just isn't something that your blood family has. And, you know, sometimes you can work with your blood family if they're willing to listen to you and grow and adjust. But I find that a lot of people don't have families like that. So if you happen to go through this situation recently, or if you have family troubles in general, and maybe this Reddit post reminded you, just remember, family is something that you choose. Your family, your choice. So you can always build your own family.